broadcast of It's Time with Reverend Nathaniel W. Martin. Here's Reverend Martin.
Thank you, Dr. Blackwell. Let me say Hotep of Aragani. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, but never good night and never ever goodbye, because goodbyes have trauma attached to them. My name is the Reverend Nathaniel Wayne Martin. I'm the pastor of the New Life Institutional Baptist Church here in the city of Los Angeles. We're located at 8916 South Main. We're being hosted by our sister church, the Shiloh Missionary Christian Church, and the pastor there is the Reverend Dr. Della F. Hollandis. And they always say when the Baptists and the Charismatics get together, there's always going to be a shouting in the camp. And surely God is good to our fellowship and our communion. And we trust in the Lord as we go forward that it will grow richer and deeper, and the Lord will continue to bless our efforts. The offering or presentation that you're viewing right now is entitled It's Time. And one might well ask, what is it time for? And the answer, of course, is always time for social justice. Since we don't live in a vacuum, but we live in a society, then our hurts and our wrongs are occurring in the context of the society. And what we identify always is the environmental component and the economic component, because those are two vital components, factors that are imperatives. And here in the state of California, we are now suffering a drought, which is environmental, and the water tables are low in the Lake Mead and the Lake Powell, and consequently in the Hoover Dam, and the water is being diminished that we get from Mono Lake, because thanks to Mr. Mulholland, we almost drained the water resources from up in Northern California. And so we've had to return or replenish, or at least cut back here in the Los Angeles basin, our water allotment from up north. And some would say that's deja vu or karma, as it may apply in the current situation. Nevertheless, we know that we are in a drought that is environmental, and that environmental component is going to affect everybody, regardless of how our we may categorize ourselves. And so when you put the climate or the weather along with the societal component, then you have the makings of a perfect storm. And of course, we can't help but notice how the criminal justice system is working, and how it is trying to gingerly contort itself not to indict or charge or accuse Monsieur Donald Trump with his crimes. If he were any other person, he would be called a career criminal. But because of who he is and what he looks like, his complexion and everything, then he almost is going to get a pass. The people in Georgia and the people in the state of New York that are conducting criminal cases and civil cases against Mr. Trump are going to have a difficult task before them, as they want to get deeper into the evidence, because you can just bet that evidence will become harder and harder to get a hold of. We hope that the judge in the DOJ case for the records that the FBI picked up last week at Mar-a-Lago will come to his senses and will not just trash the Department of Justice case that they are struggling to make. And you can see that Mr. Trump wants to have an unredacted record because he wants to find out whom in his circle is telling the FBI that he had those documents at Mar-a-Lago there in Palm Beach, Florida. And we stay tuned, because when the rich are called to account, then all manner of obstacles pop up. And as you can see, if it were a regular person, certainly you and I would have had to hire a lawyer to just try to stay out of jail. But the thing with Mr. Trump is that he's the one that made this a felony. If you recall, that was his first act, what he said on the campaign trail in a debate with Hillary Clinton, that as soon as he got in office, he was going to demand that the FBI open up an investigation of her and bring her to account. Notice the sentence for mishandling government papers up to this point, was a misdemeanor. Trump made it a felony. The sentence was 1 year, and Trump made it 5. But he was looking at Hillary Clinton at the time, and now lo and behold, he himself is the subject of this very, very legislative and of a legal brouhaha that he himself has spawned. So it might be poetic justice. One can only stand back and watch. They say when two elephants fight, the grass gets trampled. So we don't want to get trampled, so we'll stay out of the way. God bless. Now, I have a speech, portions of a speech by LBJ, which he delivered to the commencement class at Howard University on June 4th, 1965. And of course, 65 was the year of the riot here in Los Angeles. And but it was a very interesting speech. In it, he says that freedom is not enough. You do not take a person who has been hobbled for years by chains and liberate him or her, or bring him or her up to the starting line in a race and say you are free to compete with all the others, and still justly believe that you have been completely fair. Thus, it is not enough to just open the gates of opportunity. We seek not justice. He says all our citizens must have the ability to walk through those gates. We seek not just freedom, but opportunities. We seek not just legal equity, but human ability. Not equality as a fact and a theory, but equality as a result. All right. The task is to give, at that time he said we were 22 million blacks, although he used the word Negroes, the same chance and to pursue their individual happiness. He said blacks were trapped as whites are trapped in poverty. That's what it is. But he said there is a second cause, more deeply grounded, desperate in its force, devastating. It was a devastating heritage of slavery. Black poverty is not white poverty. You could tell him that. Somebody could say amen. It said, ancient brutality, past injustice, and present prejudices are the effects and the consequences of he called it racial hatred. We didn't say race, but that's what he meant, race hatred. And I bring all of that up because of the fact that in 2021, a professor Nathan Connolly and his wife, Dr. Shani Mott, had purchased a home in Baltimore, Maryland, and they bought it for $450,000. And since they had bought that house, the valuation had gone up 42% in the area, and this was according to Zillow.com. All right, now they had installed a tankless water heater, which cost $5,000, and they had done some renovations on the house that totaled $35,000. So naturally, they bought the house for $450,000. They wanted to get an appraisal to see was it worth, what their improvements had garnered, and so they hired a 2020 valuations as an appraisal company. All right, and that appraisal company only valued the house with the improvements. Remember, when they bought it, they paid $450,000 for it. But the company said that even with the improvements, the house was only worth $472,000. And the appraiser was Shane Lanham. He was the appraiser, and he was the owner of the appraisal company, 2020 Valuation. All right. Even though the professors lived in a quote-unquote white neighborhood, which meant a better neighborhood, but their house was they were not able to get a loan, in other words, to go forward because that was too close. It was only $27,000 between $450,000 and $472,000. So it was not enough equity built up in the house for them to get a loan. So what they did, I forgot to tell you that this Professor Nathan Connolly teaches history at Johns Hopkins University, and his wife, Dr. Shani Mott, also teaches at that same institution. And so they were very well-to-do, and they were very, middle class and everything. They had income and wealth and all of that type of thing. So they were not a credit risk, in other words, a loan risk. They were not going to skip out on the loan. All right, so what they did, Dr. Connolly said, I smell a rat. So what he did was he went and got a second appraisal. But before he got the appraisal, he and his wife and his children, they took down all of their photographs off the walls. They took down all the Marvel comics and Black Panther photographs, and the photographs of themselves that you put out on the desk and the tables and the nightstands and all of that type. And they had one of their white friends to come and stand in their stead. They got out of sight. All right, everything in there was, in other words, the appraiser came in. He saw a white man, okay, who was a colleague of Doctors Connolly and Mott, and so consequently, the appraisal went up from $450,000 to $750,000. just by taking down all signs of a black person in the house and having a white person appear as the owner. And so the appraiser, which was not the same appraiser, mind you, but a second appraiser from a separate company, this appraiser appraised the house at $750,000. That's a big gap between $472,000 and $750,000. You do the math. And so then the doctors, as they suspected, felt that they had been discriminated against in the appraisal. Mind you, that 97% of all home appraisers are still white. And then the black ones that are appraisers, they're working for the white ones. That's how they got their license, and that's how they got their training, and they cannot deviate from that training. But in this case, the Connollys and Messieurs Connolly and Madam Mott, both PhDs, doctors, let's put it there, doctors, were able to file in federal court against Zillow.com, against 2020 valuation, and the Loan Depot. They filed suit against them for discrimination. And I tied that in with the speech of Lyndon Baines Johnson, where he says you cannot bring a person up to the starting line if they've been hobbled by 400 years of chains and say, now you're free to run this race and think you have justly done enough. So you have to have not only equality of opportunity, but you have to have equity, which means you have to, if a person has been hobbled and this other person has not been hobbled, then the person who has been hobbled is going to need some help in order to run this race. And that is what the society is desperately fighting against. They do not want that equal opportunity and a fair chance at the race of life for everybody. I mentioned that and the situation of the Connollys, who are PhDs, mind you, and you don't get no higher than that, and professors at the Johns Hopkins University, and yet they were discriminated against. And so you can see that discrimination never sleeps, and that regardless of your class, once you are, you're still looked upon as being a minority. Abraham Lincoln said the purpose of government is to elevate the conditions of all people, to lift every artificial weight from all shoulders, and those artificial weights were prejudices, slavery, and class and gender bias. All of those things are artificial weights. Matter of fact, race itself is an artificial weight. And from all shoulders, to clear a path of laudable pursuits for all people, to give unto all an unfettered start and a fair chance in the race of life. But now, if the appraiser undervalues your home, and it's based upon his perception of your worth, social value, based upon your skin color, then you are not given an unfettered chance, an unfettered start, and a fair chance in the race of life. Isn't that right? You cannot elevate your condition if somebody is pushing you down. And artificial weights from all shoulders, but yet the appraiser looks at you and says, "Oh, you're black, so your house is not worth what a white person's house would be worth," and he undervalued that house over $200,000. $200,000. That's a lot of wampum. And so you can see from this example that racism is not there. This was this case came about in June 14th, 2021. And it has not been settled as yet, but I trust that the doctors will pursue it, and because they have a good case, don't you think? All right. Now, I also am interested, and you should be interested in, the fact that violence has been practiced against us so viciously and so continuously and so corrosively and fastidiously. No, fastidious might be a wrong word. It has been a rough road, let's put it that way. And it has been a rocky road, as this, our Negro National Anthem says, stony the road. We trod bitter the chastening rod, and but yet we have persevered. A Africana Studies professor, Dr. Walter Rodney, who's long since deceased, said that when a enslaved person uses violence to set themselves free from those who have used violence to enslave them, that is not the same moral significance. Now, whether you believe it or not, the fact is that the oppressor will not get up off your neck if you don't force him to get up off your neck. Frederick Douglass said, it must be demanded by the oppressed. The oppressed, in other words, must demand the oppressor to get up off of his neck and get up off of his back. The problem is that if you just adopt the same practices and manners and customs and policies of your oppressor, even if you get him up off of your back, but you still are within his matrix, his skein of policies and life and the like, then you haven't really overthrown him. You must make a clean break. And you can look at the Caribbean islands, how they have struggled, and how Haiti continues to struggle, and how Jamaica, even though they apotheosized or lionized Marcus Garvey after he was dead, they shunned him when he was alive because of the power of the British Empire. And so Jamaica really never got free in his mind. You see, you can take the shackles off your hand, but you got to get the shackles off of your mind. And you find that in Haiti, they're still trying to imitate the customs and traditions of those who colonized them. And in Jamaica, and sadly, in a lot of the West Indian countries. Matter of fact, that's what the problem is on the continent of Africa. Still trying to emulate the slave master. You can't emulate the slave master if you want to be free. You know, you got to throw him off and then reach for your traditions, look for your values, and bring them into the equation, bring them into the economy and the situation. I said all of that because a lot of times we get out of the jail, but we still got the jail in our mind. And it is necessary for you to be free. He whom the Son set free. All right, 5 minutes. He whom the Son set free, the Bible said, sets free, the Bible says, is free indeed. And you must make a complete break. Jesus said to his disciples, the kings of this earth and the Pharisees exercise authority, but it shall not be so. He that would be greatest among you shall be a servant. That is one hard nut to crack. But it is necessary if we're going to make a clean break with our oppressor. You cannot bring the oppressor's practices back into the new system, the new world order, the new society, the new Jerusalem. It ain't going to work. And that's why God in the book of Revelation, it says, the kings of the earth bring their glory. But it is a new world, new Jerusalem, a new heaven, a new earth. It's not going to be the same old practices. We're going to leave racism behind. We're going to leave meritocracy and classism behind. And so you're going to have to up your game and come out from among them, as the Bible says, even in your politics, in your political ethos, how you apply for your freedom, how you apply your freedom in the presence of your brothers and your sisters, because all men is one truth, are created equal. Another truth, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, and among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And so as we move toward this egalitarian society that we all want to see, then we have to think anew and formulate our ideas anew, and our values must be fresh and elevated above those that we have shunned. Otherwise, we will fall back into the same trap. And believe me, after all of this struggle, I do not want to go back to where we were. All right, I got to wrap up now. But I invite you to read Dr. Walter Rodney's book, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. And then he wrote another short book on the groundings with my brothers. Groundings with my brothers. There are two good books that would help shape our thoughts, our thinking, how to look at what is going to be coming our way, because this present way of society is going to make us all poor, because we've used up all of the environment, and the United States of America was the first polluter. And now they're pointing the finger at China, because China is struggling to become up, and so naturally they are dumping pollution. The Yangtze River is a cesspool. And anyway, as we wrap up and say goodbye, oh, did I say goodbye? As we wrap up and tell you good evening, we want you to think on these things, because if he who the Son set free is free indeed, and you've got to get free in your mind. All right? All right. If you are laboring, get money for your labor, because once you put your labor out there, you cannot get it back. And remember, if you're working with somebody on a job or in a vending situation and they don't want to pay you, what you do, you take Dr. Martin's advice. If hard work was all it took to get rich, every housewife would be rich, would be a millionaire. And if you're somebody working, if you working with somebody and they don't want to pay you, Don't work for them. Thank you, Doc. We out of here.